and they've got AI sort of doing a Hitler impression in an English accent. Well, in a in the English language, and he's talking about the two-party system, and it's amazing to me that this guy all the way back then I mean, even though he's probably a puppet as well, really, when you think about it, just tickling the ears of the as what's it?
I like how you said "really" there. That was a dead giveaway. Really. Yeah. He's an actor, really. Just the way you, yeah. That was perfect.
I mean, it's wealthy and poor people, isn't it? It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's a rich man's game at this point, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, in a way, it is. Yeah, like I guess what they're doing, but I mean, we are kind of under their system in a way, like whatever the system is that they've been kind of getting a stronghold over, but they don't really like control our lives necessarily. They don't control our minds necessarily, or our spirits. Or when I say they, I'm just saying like just in terms of the level of like influence on that kind of scale, on like the world banks. I'm saying, like the world banks could be doing what they're doing, but you could still be free and swimming in the ocean or something.
Yeah, what's weird is that
semi-free. It's partial free.
I was actually going to ask you, Left Lane. You do obviously you would concede that propaganda is a real thing, I'm sure, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, good. But social engineering, think tanks, nudging, as they like to call it. Yeah, there is people nudging, and on some level, I could actually appreciate it. I could say, well, some of that's actually might be good propaganda. It might be, people do need to be nudged in one way or another sometimes. But I think there's a sort of extreme part of that as well, where people just go fucking mental. Anyway.
Well, if someone agrees that there is propaganda, then Left Lane, like it would then just be the question of to what level that's occurring. Because I mean, I see the globe as a propaganda piece. It's a propagandized model. So you may not fit the globe into propaganda, but have you considered it may actually be propaganda?
Well, I mean, I guess you would use like NASA and the moon landings as the propaganda, but I mean, the information's there and such, but I really don't think it's being pushed or crammed down our throat. It's just information that's there. Or you turn on a liberal news station, and these days it's pure cramming down your throat. They jump on top of you and start stomping, the propaganda down your throat. Trying to force feed it to you. That's propaganda to me.
Well, how early are kids given a globe, or shown globes and balls? Like sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. I hear people talk about it. It's just kind of understood. It's not something that was, taught one way or the other. That's just, it's just the way it is to me. It's not. I don't know.
Okay, so you think it was a natural progression? Like you're saying, you go with the history that they tell about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember staying up late to watch the moon stuff. And I was what was I, 6 or 7 years old. So, I mean, there it is. And then, the space station, and then the ISS and the space shuttle program, it's just been part of the reality all my life.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, when I'm saying propaganda, I'm not just talking about NASA or moon landing or something like that. I'm like not like just like Nixon on the phone talking to people on the moon. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the entire thing. Like the entire model is a propaganda vehicle.
Well, yeah, but I understand that you have got a different view, maybe that's all part of one big thing, kind of thing. But I don't see it like that, So I mean, I just have to be accepting and understanding of your position and why you think like you do. And
all right, but if the ancients were right, that the Earth is a stationary plane, and then these modern day people that are purporting the globe thing are actually deceiving us, if that was the truth, would you not then see that the globe would then be a propagandized concept that was pushed to the masses? Wouldn't it have to be, if that is the truth? Is the kind of
that would definitely would be a thing. But I mean, for me, I don't even need all of that stuff. I mean, you can confirm it for yourself with your own observations and experience that it all comports. It's all congruent. It all says the same thing.
So, I mean, the main thing though is that, like, if you agree propaganda exists, you just don't think the globe doesn't fit in your mind. That doesn't fit into the propaganda bin for you. in your mind, is what you're saying?
No, it doesn't.
Have you considered that it could be?
Well,
I mean,
oh
I know you
yeah,
have, because we've been talking about it for
yeah,
years, but
yeah. I've been, yeah. I mean, I made an effort to be considerate and think of these things from a different perspective and different idea. I told from the get go why I was here. It's like it's fascinating that we all see the same thing, but we all see it differently.
well, I've been talking a little bit lately. Do you know what like chirality is? Like chiral and achiral?
Yeah, yeah. It's associated with molecular chirality in left and right molecules.
Yeah, it is used in chemistry in terms of how molecules can be mirrored and like non-similar mirroring um, and asymmetrical mirroring that can occur within molecules. But the actual like chiral is actually a geometric concept, like chiral and achiral. Um, anyways, but I was just gonna say, and I've been saying this a bit the last few days, so it's just kind of been on my mind with it. And it just links to what because you were saying that we all see it differently, but like the way that like molecules can be chiral, they're mirrored, and they can be mirrored in different ways. Sometimes they're like asymmetrical, sometimes they're symmetrical, and then sometimes they can be similar or non-similar as well. But my point is just to say, like, if we were just to say like a stationary planar Earth, which is the ancient, since the dawn of time. If you want to link the term flat Earth with that, but yeah, I mean a stationary planar foundation with the sky above was a cosmology since the dawn of time, and then the globe one, and there's like a chiral nature between these two cosmographies, because cosmography is the actual physical layout, like the cosmographical layout of which is, if we're talking about that part of it, at least. But there's like a certain like chiral reflective nature. Now it's obviously not perfectly like it would not be exactly it would be non-similar because they're not exactly the same. They're different, and there would be differences. But I'm just saying, like in a lot of the like arguments and ways of viewing it and perspectives on it, how there's always like one side and then there's like a rebuttal, and then the other side and a rebuttal. What I'm saying is, it seems like it's like built into the even like into the geometries. I think is ultimately what it boils back to. That it's into the geometries to where there's like a certain reflection between the kind of two sides. But really, like only those two models. Like, I'm not really talking about any other. Like I'm not talking about cubes or any other kind of ideas. I'm just talking about those two because you have a sphere and a plane, and then how those spheres and plane are put together, either on a globe model in the heliocentric kind of model now, or with a stationary planar Earth with the sky above. So I'm just saying there's all these like mirrored. But anyways, it just like kind of links to what you were saying about how like we all perceive it differently, and then when it comes to these two kind of main models as well.
Yeah, I got you. And it's, I mean, locally, standing out in the desert, done it many times. I look around, yeah, it's flat as fuck. I mean, it's flat, and historically, those people that were limited to their, location, I mean, as far as they could walk to and walk back from, that was the limit of their world, and it seems like the globe came around. This guy was looking at the sky and trying to think, how the fuck is that happening? At least, and he started writing things down and he started marking it and observing it, and then and then he came up with this idea of heliocentric, that maybe the sun was in the middle because all these observations work with that. And then of course later on, as they started traveling abroad and so on and so forth, and then that's the globe was born, I guess you might say. That's from my perspective, right?
So, do you guys think like the Freemasons and the Rothschilds, do they know the Earth is flat and they're intentionally lying to us, or do you think they honestly believe that it's a globe and they're just deceived?
No, they know it's planar in nature. Yeah, stationary. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the ones. I mean, it depends on who you're talking about exactly, but the ones that actually are in on it, as it were, yeah, they absolutely know. Yeah.
Yeah, they have it on their attire. I'm just going to post some of their attire. Maybe someone can correct me if it's wrong.
Oh no, they use it. Yeah. Well, you're talking about in Freemasonry. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected with that. Yeah. It's a deception that's really based on measuring the Earth.
Yeah, basically what I'm just asking is like, did the elites, like the people who ever control society, like, did they know? And you think yes?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, some do, and then some don't. So obviously, like if somebody's just like working for NASA or something like that, they may not know. If they're just a regular. Yeah. So it depends on kind of who. Yeah, exactly. At what level, but I like when I say who's actually in on it in that sense. Yeah, to be in on it, you have to know. So yeah, if we just make that very generalized thing of those who are actually in on it, who actually know, because yeah, I mean, they basically took everything from the stationary planar world, as it were, before their globe thing, took all that data, and then they have to know what it actually is so that they can do the GPS system and pull off the flights, like with the air travel, because there's a part of it that they have to work out in there as well. So Yeah, they have to, and I mean, they would have to have all the and they have all the equipment to measure the ground and the land layout and stuff too.
Does anybody know how many of the astronauts are Freemasons?
All
Quite
of
a
them,
few, actually.
like all of them that went to the moon, that claim
Yep.
to have gone to the moon.
And just because you're a Freemason doesn't mean you're like in the know. Like you don't really get to know anything until like the top echelon, like the highest levels.
That's okay, but that is a bit convenient though, because you can ask Freemasons, but then you can then say that the only ones that know are the ones at the top, and you just ask someone who wasn't at the top.
Sure,
So
sure.
you really have no indication that they really know, or whatever, there's a conspiracy, or they know this flat, or they know the moon landing was fake.
Yeah, I don't like when people imply this argument of there would be an astronaut that would say that, oh, the real thing was so close to the simulation that I couldn't even tell the difference. And people will imply that means that, oh, maybe the astronauts aren't actually in on it, and maybe they don't know that they're faking things. Like they either know they're faking things or they're not. Like don't have this idea that like, oh, somebody could think that they went to the moon and not be in on it.
But
What about
you need a way of
hypnotism?
Well,
you need a way of faking microgravity or zero G. You need a way of faking that.
Which would be
Simulation,
possible as long as they're in on it.
the
But if
vomit
they're
problem.
not in on it, then it'd be really difficult.
So
I
your
would say
mission's
they
3
have to
days
be-
long, and you have to the entire time you'd have to fake zero G.
You don't see a live feed of 3-day long zero G.
I'm trying to make it work. Is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see if it can stand a little bit of scrutiny. The
The
idea
thing,
that
let me
they
just
could
say real quick.
fake
Let me
that.
say about Freemasonry. Like, can I just say something about that real quick? Because I don't know. Well, where are we at right now? Where do you want to point right there, or can I jump in on that? Or
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say. So, in general, like, what do you guys think of this? Like, because we're talking about Freemasons for a second. Someone's echoing. All right. Someone's mic was echoing. So Freemasonry, like, there's always there's like originally they had free access, and that's why they were Freemasons. They had the ability to go between like country and state lines, as it were, the equivalent of that, like these territories, because they were bringing in all of the like building materials to build homes and things. So they had like freer access, and then they had ability to trade between them as well. So then like a kind of brotherhood and network, kind of, because they were making more kind of profits and resources and stuff because they were building, and so then you get into that, so you get some of the wealth thing going on. But originally it may not have necessarily been like that evil even per se. Like it could have just been like, well, it just is what it is, kind of a boys club, and then different things, energies come into it. Then it kind of seems like whatever is going on now with like the entities or kind of things that are in control now, it's like they then seem to like hijack Freemasonry, and then they now use it as like as a breeding ground to kind of breed sociopaths, basically, or like groom for sociopaths, or like sociopaths and psychopaths, but more so psychopaths. Now at the civilian level of it, not necessarily. They would just be doing their, like, because some of the like Shriners and stuff, it's not necessarily all psychopath stuff, but it also does seem like people that are attracted to that, they have these like layers to it, to where there's like a civilian level, and then there seems to be like probably a level that's like, if we call it like a secret society level of it. So that secret society level of it, is that part actually just something that kind of hijacked Freemasonry originally, to where now there's like, and then they use those symbols as their kind of like gang signs, it seems, and all their stuff. 'Cause it's like on the dollar bill, and it's all over the governmental stuff.
So to back that up by like the levels thing and like the innocent Shriner, like I know somebody personally that's he's a part of the Freemasons, and he's very braggadocious about it. He's like a older man, and he's essentially striving to be like a Shriner or whatever. That kind of seems like his like upper level kind of thing. And when I questioned him about it, it's like, like, what do you guys do at these meetings? Like, oh, we just go there and we talk about what we're going to do in the community, and like outreach and networking and stuff. And I was like, so at the end of the meeting, like you're not a high level. At the end of the meeting, what do the higher level guys do? Like, oh, well, they all go into the back room and have their own private meeting. You don't find that weird at all? He's like, well, no. Like they sometimes just call it like the ritual or whatever, but it's just, the top guys go in the back, and then we continue with like, go get coffee or whatever at the front. And I'm like, well, was there anything weird when you joined? And he said, you don't have to say that you believe in a god specifically, but just you believe that there is a type of god.
Yeah, because
And-
eventually, that's where like the Luciferian cult comes in at the higher levels of it. Yeah, because they want to replace it with their demonic entity, or they want
Like
to put their
page
demonic energy.
Page 312 or 213, I forget which, but like he even admitted this stuff, and he didn't find it weird that they after their meeting, they literally go and have a ritual in the back room. Oh, sorry, they call it a ritual, but it's just a meeting. And he's just a low down Freemason that just wants to be the guy in the little car driving during parades.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because when we're talking about like at the higher levels of what might be going on, like within the more like the non-civilian levels of it, because yeah, the civilian level, it's not even necessarily that nefarious. I mean, those guys could have been meeting about something, but I'm saying like, are you implying that they were involved in something nefarious? I mean, they probably are.
I'm not necessarily implying that, but maybe it's just like their little group has to call it like, oh, and then we do the ritual, and like, and it's just kind of tradition at that point to call it a ritual. But it is still strange that only the upper echelon guys, and this isn't exactly like a big town. Like, yes, I live near a capital, but were these guys important enough to be like a high level? I doubt it.
Yeah, see, so what they may have like going on at this point, where they may have like the idea of like an agent or an operative or a shill kind of thing. They could have a guy that could come into a town that is like actually like an undercover dude that is part of like, the whole like Illuminati, as it were. If I just use that name just in a funny way, the whole like control system at that level. Like he is actually like an operative or an agent of some sort, and he would come in and just like just kind of like be a regular guy like visiting the lodges or whatever, and then anyone that seems to have like a more psychopathic mentality, they may kind of like inch to the top of their thing, and then that dude might see. That's where it's possible that they could actually be using it as a way to kind of link in with people through the actual civilian level of it, where there could be like operatives that are actually kind of like trying to find others. Because the thing is, like, I know this is a pretty dark like level to get to, but like if you are a psychopath and you're doing some of the stuff they're doing, like these wars and all this different stuff, like there's not that many of them, because when you think about psychopaths, there's not very many psychopaths. Like most people are actually just cool people. Some have issues or whatever, but most are not psychopathic. So it's like it's a very rare thing. That's why like they do trauma-based mind control to like create psychopathy or to try to. Anyway, so my point is that like, if that psychopathic group wants to try to control everyone else, I mean, they're going to be limited in their psychopaths in a way. So that's where, like, I guess you could say it's like a weakness or something, because obviously there's, for them, I guess, if you want to say that, because there's not very many of them. But nonetheless, like, it would, I mean, all of like the kidnappings with children, that's a whole other crazy thing that they might be doing too. But nonetheless, like, that's the thing. And so they may want to find others that are going to actually do, the things they want them to do, which most people will not do.
Well, people are attracted to things that they're interested in, right? Like, if a person's really into cars, they'll end up being like a mechanic or something like that. So people that want power, or they find themselves going for positions of power.
Money and power. Yeah, that's a lot of what they're after.
Yeah, power is usually the end goal, because money is just a tool for that. But I did post the titles for each of the levels, and I found one interesting one: Knight of the Brazen Serpent. And when you get to 32, it is Sublime Prince of the Royal Secret. And I believe there's a public answer to what the Royal Secret is, and perhaps another one that they don't tell, because when you get to the top, you don't have to tell the truth to those below. They're essentially your tools.
I had a funny thought about Freemasonry, then going to that 33rd degree and then possibly becoming a we could explore that idea. I'll just get to that in a minute. The funny thought was, I was thinking of the Knights Templars as the first, probably not the first, but just to make it sound better, the world's first protection racket. That just makes me laugh. And I had a sort of weird thought about it, just that they were dressing up in Muslim garb and hijacking some pilgrims, killing them, taking the wealth. It was like the first protection racket. Like, you think of these Italians going around to a shop and smashing the windows and saying, "Look, you got to pay us, or we got to protect your business." Basically, it just made me laugh. Anyway, back to the Shriners thing. What I heard was that they get to us. Do you want to get it, Joe?
Well, maybe I'm just going to post this real quick, because it's kind of a funny one. Like, I know somebody wrote the text on there, but like, just after you're done, like, what is this level of it? Like this whole Freemasonic thing. This is like in a huge auditorium. Obviously, these are people from like, anyways, but I was just going to post that and then we could go to it. But yeah, go ahead on your point.
I was just going to say what I heard was that if Jesus is your guy, that you'll be passed over, essentially, because once you go to Shrine, that's like Muhammad is your prophet then, and the Quran becomes your book. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true, of course, because I haven't experienced it. But yeah, Fridge, if you know anything about that, not that I want to take the conversation in a religious route or anything. I'm just saying that's interesting, isn't it? If all of a sudden Jesus is your guy forever, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'll swap over. Now Muhammad's your guy, and the Quran's your book you live by. That's kind of interesting. I don't know. If it's true, of course. I don't know if it's true. That's what I heard.
Yeah, and I think that's why that's one of the initiating questions that you have to answer correctly. And of course, you probably have like somebody, like, you have to be like sponsored to come in, whatever. So like somebody that's already in the club, and they'll probably tell you, it's like, hey, you have to answer this and you have to answer that. But for one of the initial questions to be, you have to believe that there's some sort of like entity or a God type thing, not necessarily like God, the Christian God, you know, but
Well, they want to know that there's something you'll submit to.
Yeah.
That's all. That's it, basically. Yeah, as long as you'll submit to something.
Can you get far enough in the ranks that once we tell you what's what, you're not just gonna get turned off or whatever, you know?
Well, yeah, that's why it seems like they have the levels in terms of what. It's very compartmentalized.
Yeah, I just posted a video of an undercover video of a Freemasonic meeting where it looks like they have a stripper.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I know, it is a men's club. Like, I don't know if I've heard of a man, or sorry, a woman in like the Freemasons or whatever, but I think their equivalent would be what, like the Rotary Club or whatever.
I know there are a lot of women Freemasons. Trust me on this. Trust me.
Well,
on
but
this.
they're separate from the men's one, though. They're different, though. Like, there's still the men is only for men, but there's just women like kind of organizations, but they're not like except for the men ones, male ones, right?
No, I meant in the actual Freemasons, like normal Freemasons. A lot of women in those.
Like they weren't brought in by like a husband or anything. Like they're just sponsored on their own.
I'm clearly making the allusion to the other thing.
Well, I mean, like Freemasonry, like in terms of like, if you want to call it like mainstream Freemasonry, is male only. But there are like kind of obviously there's wives of Freemasons, and then there's also some groups that are like, but they're not recognized by the official quote unquote Freemasons, right? The female ones. Are you agreeing with that?
Yeah. My point is the whole just golem train thing. That there are Freemasons that are inverted from birth. That was my point. They are publicly male. Like this is what I mean.
Okay. Do you get into the reptilians or no? Do you get into the reptilian connection?
I could have a point on the reptilian thing in a way to where it's like, yes, they are reptiles, but not in the way that you would think. And I don't consider that reptile thing to be viable in the way that it is put out.
Yeah, they don't come from Draco Century or whatever year.
Yeah, plus a lot of those like, oh, look at the reptile eyes in the photos. Like, if you just understand computer or like digital photography, those things just happen.
We got to switch off reptilians because we just lost like 5 people post haste.
True.
We're bleeding listeners.
It's all my fault. My bad.
Reptilians is a great topic.
Yeah, I think that people have misunderstood that quite a bit. Even what's his name, David Icke. You know, he was sort of I would say the first person that brought that kind of stuff mainstream. I think they've sort of taken him a little out of context. I dare say, not that I'm a David Icke expert, but he'd sort of talk about it as a principle, a guiding principle. You know, like the ancients thought of it as wisdom, symbolized wisdom. You know, and I think he'd go and visit these tribes, and they'd always have some kind of serpent. They'd always have, you know, we've talked about that quite a lot. But I think even David Icke's got misunderstood with that a little bit. I think he
called himself like a prophet or like the next coming of Jesus or something like that. I'm not sure.
He went a bit mental. Is the truth of it. He had an experience. He had a bit of a breakdown, really, and he just needed a hug. But instead, he got ridiculed, which is kind of the way we do things. You know?
Yeah. So
there is weird stuff though. Like I don't know if you guys ever saw it, but like the tribe that would like stab a sword through their body and like miss every organ, and the sword would come out and like no blood. I'm talking like right through.
Yeah, that's the thing that like David Blaine.
Yeah,
did.
no, not
Same
David Blaine.
concept.
No. This was old. This was before that. This was like 90s. Like.
Yeah, what I mean is it's the same concept. Is that you gradually create scar tissue that you can just safely go through.
No, they did it to the guy that was documenting them because he didn't believe it. He's like, no, what's going on here?
Okay. Yeah, in that sense.
Sorry.
No. In that sense, there is an interesting like a lot of Indian, like Native American tribes have concepts of people with snakes for hair. And there are like important figures in their mythology that have snakes for hair. And another way that you could look at that is, what would you describe somebody who everybody that you know has straight hair? Everybody around you has had straight hair. You've never seen anybody who doesn't have like straight black hair. And then all of a sudden you see some curly headed mofo. You would describe his hair as snakes, because that is what sort of curly hair would sort of give the vision of, and that would be a very simple way for them to describe it, which would go into the idea of, white people being interacting with these Native American tribes well before like, the Pilgrims and all of that stuff. But on the point of reptilians in general, the way that I would conceptualize it is that there are 3 brains that you have, like sort of 3 modes of operating, in that you have your reptilian form, which is your basic survival instincts, your hot, cold measurements, your desire to not get like hit by a car, your basic personal survival. And then there's your mammalian brain, which is like, I'm going to, I need to be able to like take care of these kids. I need to have basic empathy for the people that I'm like, genetically connected with, having a little bit of that for other people, like the kind of stuff that you would see is like the peak of, a chimpanzee or a dog or something like that. And then there's your human brain, which is obviously where all of your higher faculties and reasoning and language and all of that stuff comes into. And so a reptilian, reptiles are perfectly willing to eat their young because they don't have the same kind of concept of like caring for their kin in the same way. So if you were to say that we are controlled by reptile people, and if you think about it in the concept that they are operating under their reptile brain, then you're cooking with gas. Then you got something.
Okay, well, there's a lot of different angles that could be unpacked, and we could go into those factors as well. One thing, just from a little bit from the stream before, I was kind of waiting to get in because I wanted to ask this as well. But we could go into that as well, and I would even like to respond to that too. But I guess I just wanted to say, just basically this kind of as well. So, do you think that like it'll just be like 2 quick questions, I suppose? Okay, do you think there is some kind of a group that is behind? The World Banks, the governments, like just in a very general way. I know people use that phrase like Illuminati, but do you think there is some group of entities, just in a very generalized way? Just Yasuke, basically just like a yes, no.
Yes, there's a shadowy cabal.
Okay, so and then I guess the next question and how it potentially links into the reptilian connection as well, and then the things you said too are be interesting to just so we don't forget those two. But I guess the question I was going to say is like the next thing from that is, okay, then are they human? At the top of it, as it were. Are they human? And then is it one, is it just human all the way up, do you think? Or is it human and then in one other species? Or is it human and then multiple other species? Or, yeah, because it's just kind of that open-ended question, yeah.
Obviously, my conception is that they are sort of genetically similar to us. They may be doing some like rudimentary gene editing practices for a while, like kind of doing some weird bloodline stuff, but they're not fundamentally unhuman in that sense. And then I would just say that obviously, in my conception, this shadowy cabal and these people do like sort of like essentially with the whole gender inversion thing. That would go into that is the sort of the delineation between the people who are part of the shadowy cabal and are not part of the shadowy cabal. But of course, that's just my interpretation of it, which would mean that they are human.
Okay, because I guess like okay, but do you think it's possible they could not be human? Like, what about the level of evil they have? Isn't that like? Have you ever thought that could be like beyond what's even humanly capable?
I think that it is very. I think that people are not capable of being that evil without massive amounts of trauma behind it. But it's also that they're not so evil that they're like Saturday morning cartoon villain evil. In that they still have to have all of these like copes and all of these justifications for themselves about like tacit consent, like, oh, we have to tell them what we're doing to them, or like we have to give them the medicine that is actually poison, and they're the ones who are responsible for it for accepting that. So in that sense, they have to convince themselves that what they are doing is not pure evil.
Yeah, it's called collective manifestation, where they try to program us and then we collectively manifest our reality.
I mean, I wouldn't. Why? I mean, yeah. Yakuza. I always get your name wrong.
Yasuke.
Yasuke. Why would you make any claims about non-humans without any evidence whatsoever?
I didn't make a positive claim that there were non-humans.
Fair enough. So that's. I mean, to me, if you understand the mechanics of the ego and the way it works, then all you really have to say is that this is why in every ancient spiritual tradition, if you went to India and talked to pretty much anybody, whether they were, let's just say they were a Hindu, in the first 2 seconds, the word ego would come out, because that's the biggest warning, because of the delusion. And so if you think about it, and well, you can make of it what you will, because I'm sure I'm already thought of as an anti-Semite, which I'm certainly not. But you know how the game works. But if you think about it from that paradigm, then you have Jews, and they dehumanize the other. I'm doing the hand quotes. The other by, they're Gentiles. They're the other. So it dehumanizes, doesn't it? So you don't have to even think of it from a non-human. I mean, look, maybe they are, but I would never make that claim without any evidence whatsoever. That's ridiculous. You don't need to either.
I think the same kind of character could be derived from tons of trauma and cannibalism, because cannibalism is how you would elevate the subconscious and program the gut, which is part of the mind, into looking at your fellow man as,
Prey.
food. Right. Yeah.
Well, look, I don't want to take it into this topic, but you only have to look at what's happening in Gaza now. Women and children are being killed in front of the world. So they dehumanize them so much. It's like, well, they're using human shields. Yeah, right. I'm sure they were using human shields on the USS Liberty, right?
Yeah, but Andy, what's a couple more Palestinians? It's almost already finished, and then we can have our hotel.
It's pretty obvious they've dehumanized them to the point. Think about it throughout history, right? Just the way the ego works. It's like you're wrong, but you're not just. You're so wrong. You deserve to die for it, and they do. They go kill them. So, yeah, that's. Oh my god.
Well, they do it to the Palestinians first, and then they're going to do it to us next.
Yeah, there seems to be some demonic stuff going on out there in some places. More than others, perhaps, because that sounds very dark.
War is hell.
Yep. Yeah, like what was going on, like the Vietnam War, that was like a demon feeding frenzy. Horrible.
Yeah, I can definitely see why. I mean, Eustace Mullins openly called the French Revolution demonic, and I can certainly see why. Because how many people's heads they chopped off. I mean, it's no laughing matter, but it's like you could almost think of it from the angle of the demon that's frenzied, looking around the room with his frenzied eye, looking for the next fucking victim. Some of the shit I've heard, I wouldn't even want to describe, just in case you're eating. But seriously, I mean, and that's when the more awareness is required, because there's a group element to energies. You have an individual energy which can go one. I always think of it as a sliding scale of emotion. Everyone knows what, even the most cut off person knows what a positive, and like joy. You think about the bottom of the scale. Well, it's all sinful, in the Bible, isn't it? It's all gluttony and envy and jealousy and all that. And so I kind of look at it that way. And there's a collective aspect to it as well. And you may have been in a crowd, and it's great if it's jubilant and it's joyful and it's wonderful, yes. But there's also that negative side of that scale as well that can drag you along, so to speak.
So I'm kind of lost. Are we talking about the possibility of there being a superior group controlling the world, or how they might be thinking? What are we talking about?
Well, actually,
Yeah,
I wanted to go back to that a little bit. So, like, okay, so if at the top of the pyramid, as it were, the all-seeing eye, but if it's something that's not human, does that make a difference, like for us in various ways? Like, what I'm saying is that if it's just all humans doing it, or that's option A, or if it's actually humans, and then at some point there is actually some other type of species or being or entities that are actually like even like like physically involved. Like I'm not saying just like mentally, but I'm saying like does that make a difference? Because if we found out that it was another species, would that then mean that that the humans are going to want to kill them all? Like not me, I'm saying, but like other ones are going to, because they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like when they really figure out what's happened. Or would there, if that was the case, like, I guess that would bring in like whether there would be peace with them or not.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting idea, Gio. How you've done ayahuasca. How many times have you done ayahuasca, by the way? Not that I want to turn the conversation into that at all. I'm just saying that people who I've never done it, but people who
Well,
do,
I mean, I'll just say just briefly, many times, yeah. So
and you get to. I've heard this like thing where people talk to Mother Ayahuasca, and I know you've told me in the past that it's not always female, but there is some kind of entity. Is that right or not?
Mother
Um,
Earth.
with ayahuasca, yeah, there does seem there like many people do resonate that there is an ayahuasca spirit, yeah, that is there. And uh, there's like an intelligence that seems unique to the ayahuasca. It's like and it's experienced in many different ways. I mean, some people get like direct communication of information about their life or about something within themselves that they're working with, or even just like blessings of various like information or downloads, all kinds of different things, or even like insights about their life. And some people refer to it as like a teacher, like the teacher plant. And so when they go into the experience, they're surrendering, and then there's always like some piece of like wisdom or knowledge or something within themselves that needs to could be transformed. And it's like the ayahuasca seems to always bring that. So then it's sort of like a teacher plant that way, where it's like it's always seems to assist you in facing like deeper parts of yourself and like integrating trauma or integrating different things within the self, or like accessing creativity, all those facets. Yeah.
So to me, it doesn't seem too far fetched. I mean, to say that, just going back to that I don't see the things as non-human. That doesn't, that just hits my ear funny. I'm like, but if we could think of it, and I'm not saying it is this way, I'm just saying, what if it's an entity of, a spiritual entity that's a little bit like that, but on the opposite scale. That's actually, if you the way you've spoken about it before, Gio, it's a very positive thing. Well, what if there's a thing at the opposite end of the scale that's very negative, that's influencing these people, right? That to me is more reasonable anyway than just saying, well, they're non-human people. I don't even know what that is. What it sounds like. Well, the aliens.
Yeah. Well, so I would say this. So like like a human, in my viewpoint, a human, as it were, is like he has a physical body and the physical makeup and all that. But really, it's like the seat of the soul, as it were, or for in that sense. But even I think, like, I guess what I was going to say with it is that basically there's like two main ways that there could be something quote unquote otherworldly. Let's say one of them could be humans, like just regular humans, like biologically we're humans, but then more like on a spiritual level, or on the kind of you could say psychological, emotional, but like on the spirit plane level, those humans could be channeling something very, very dark, like like straight out of Exorcist level stuff. You know what I mean? So like if that's on the table, then you could have a human being that is actually channeling some kind of completely demonic entity, but there they are, just a human being. So that's one way. And then that demonic entity, or I'm just calling it, you trying to use just some terminology for the moment, but I'm saying like that kind of evil energy that's coming through that human. I mean, are they like completely like kind of taken over, or is any of the human like capacity still there, like like empathy or love or compassion or a conscience, like? So that's even a deeper question. Like, could the human body be hijacked to such a level that something on the kind of spirit level could actually take someone over to that extreme? And there are cases where people like lose it and go on murdering sprees and stuff. There is crazy stuff that goes on. So like, yeah, obviously that's like not having any empathy. So there's obviously that idea. I'm saying that things can come through the human psyche, as it were. But then the other level of it is, like you were saying, actually physically another race or another type of being or another type of entity.
Yeah, I just think that the way we just explained that to me seems more reasonable. I mean, I imagine there's people listening that are like, oh, no, that just is completely unreasonable. They don't believe in any kind of spiritual dimension, and that's fine, because it can also be explained just from the human condition, just from greedy bastards, right? It can be explained just for people being like, I want all the stuff, and also I want you to have nothing. So it can be explained very simply like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, so like I have no question that there's like let's just say, I'll just use a very generalized term. I'll just say there's a demonic entity that is possessing many of these people that are doing this. It's like a group possession. So I do think there's humans involved, but the question is there another level that's non-human? But I do think at the human level, like even if you're like working for the CIA and you're doing sketchy stuff, or you're making cartoons for NASA, or you're whatever, you're an astronaut, all these things, like they see that, like, it may even go well because they have their whole thing with their bloodlines. So what is that all about? To be like so hyper focused on bloodlines, and then you get into what happened in World War II. But yeah, they seem to be like psychopaths about the bloodline thing. And
100%.
if there's like a spiritual dimension to it, and the spirit is connected through the blood, then them wanting to have a particular bloodline may be about more than just the physical part of that, and maybe having to do more with that nature. Like if there was some way that them all having the same blood keeps them in some kind of a similar mindset.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I used to look into like the Theosophical Society before, Madame Blavatsky, all that stuff. She talked to her spirit on the regular, apparently, Now that could be sensationalism, of course, and I think she makes the claim that Lucifer was a force for good in the world, right? The light bearer or something like that. I can't remember. It's a very long time ago when I used to look into that. But if you look throughout lots of history,
Well, that's
like
what Lucifer was originally. Yeah, the light
yeah,
bearer.
in the even at the sort of the Oracle at Delphi, they used to speak to spirits. I'm pretty sure as well, or got possessed by a spirit, or something like along those lines.
The aspect of humanity, I think that Geo and Yasuke kind of brought up, like the natural flow of the more like reptilian brain, the more predatory brains are to become part of this highly influenced, highly chameleon-like control group. And it just so happens these bloodlines, they also love to find those type of minds in their own blood, right? They prioritize those. They vet. I'm sure, like talking about the levels, Geo was just now talking about, like there could be a level above where they're inhuman. But I think there's levels in the human aspect too, where they're not letting certain archetypes of psychology get into the upper levels, right? They compartmentalize certain levels of socio and psychopaths. So I think it's a huge aspect.
Yeah, dude, and it's connected into even like MK Ultra and the trauma-based mind control, where they try to create that in people by doing the trauma in the first place. But yeah, there's all those layers as well. But
Well said though, Geo. Like seriously, well, I actually want to clip that.
I would say, as a direct answer to the question you asked earlier, Gio, about like what would people do if it was uncovered, unearthed, had some sunshine on it, et cetera, et cetera. I would say that there's this concept that love, among other things, is violence to the wicked. In that, if you do love something, that is good, that there is a demand to be violent against that which wants to see love die, love perish. So, in that sense, if there is, some group that is primarily their biggest mode would be deception. Deception is the hardest thing to properly police. So there really is no solution to deception, but complete purge of it out. Whereas if there was a military culture that was going against you, you could get rid of their power structure. You could get rid of their ability to locally congregate, ability to train, et cetera, and you'd be able to still live alongside a militaristic culture, which is ostensibly your enemy. But for deception, it's like clear them out. Yeah.
It's gonna take a long time for humanity to see that. I think maybe we're seeing the beginning of it right now, though.
Well, I don't know. I think people are getting more and more trusting with the system, and that's a big part of the whole Trump thing. Is the people that would have been most likely to like properly look into these things, lose faith in the system, want to actually institute change, they've all by and large like gone back into trusting the system.
Yeah, it's like they've been channeled.
No, for sure. And if I could maybe just link it back, I was gonna because I was still kind of deep into thinking about what we were talking about. So oh, sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Well, I was gonna say like, okay, these the kind of like cabal, as you said, like use that term, like, are they a cult that goes through like are they like a blood cult because they have all of their stuff they do with the bloodlines? Are they like a bloodline cult that keeps their cult through the bloodline? And somehow through the blood, there's some way in which it keeps them in, perhaps even like a mentality where they really don't have anyone that's like going against the family kind of thing.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think they intermingle with normal people. There's no miscegenation at all.
Yeah, like they would totally separate, even their children, totally different lives. They'd be vetted their whole life, and I bet like probably not a high percentage of even their kids would get into that higher level of information and knowledge, right? They'd probably suppress their own child if they were flagged as a risk. So.
Oh yeah, you're just saying they're crazy enough to where if any of their children rebel, they would just be instantly taken out or something, or not even allowed to, or not.
Yeah, and like probably most of them just get gaslit into ruining their own lives, right? They do. they get pressure from the family. They don't know what's really about what's really going on behind the scenes. It's really
Yeah, it is
interesting.
kind of like a dark area, but I guess I was thinking like, yeah, basically that they're like it's like an inbred cult, potentially, speculatively, if that's what they are. Because if they also do kind of if it's like inbreeding and then it's like also they're like pretty psychopathic as well, it seems, or at least they have someone involved in their crew, obviously, or at least the majority of their crew seems to be into some pretty nefarious stuff. Because a lot of the stuff they're doing is just really unnecessary. It's like if you're just wanting to like be human and hang out, it's just unnecessary on every level. Like so, they're obviously into doing all kinds of. They have a lot of agendas.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of information about how there's enough of the bloodlines. They like it's part of the amount of bloodlines themselves is like an interesting number with like keeping your the diversity in the gene pool. So it makes like I've heard whistleblowers like talking about how these families push marriages. It's like you qualified to get an arranged marriage at a certain point. So like before you're even like vetted or after you're vetted to a certain point, you have a chance of getting a arranged marriage. But before that, it's not even like on the menu. It makes me really think about like if they're highly aware of the impact of like preserving their bloodline, they're highly into that stuff. I mean, it just makes me think like how advanced they must be, how much money they put into it. So like the cloning, all that stuff comes into play for me there.
Yeah, totally, dude. And then it is weird, like how many children get kidnapped. It just doesn't line up. Like I know there's creepy people out there that might kidnap a kid, and that's messed up on every level. But I don't really think there's that many of those compared to how many kids go missing. So I know it's a whole nother like speculative thing, but like where are all the kids going? Anyways, but that would play into that idea too, because if they're then taking a bunch of, you know what I mean, then yeah, with whatever other kind of breeding and stuff they could be doing, or kind of crossbreeding, and that's why like they might do stuff where they get like twins, and then one of them they like put out in the world for adoption, and then the other one they keep on the on the miscellaneous land, as it were, and then they both grow up, and then it ends up being like Eminem or someone, and then now it's like, oh, we have a twin, that we planted in originally, stuff like that.
They're on that shit, I swear. Like that, like it.
I know Yasuke would get down with that. Oh man.
I don't know how to feel about the cloning
growing up.
stuff.
Well, that's like kind of it's like more of a twin one where they just grow the twin basically on on the other lands, and then the other twin is somehow like, but you have to put them into the world. So, or they could take a twin as well. They could they could grab one, and then take that one elsewhere when it was like very young.
Yep, and they know they probably have reliable, like code. Literally, they probably see it like that too. Like we have reliable code, we can kind of on repeat.
Yeah, but there is all the. Yeah, it's kind of a funny level of it.
Yeah.
If they're doing that, but
like I think they know they're gonna get a charismatic, good public speaker or an artist or musician. Like I think they kind of have a general idea of what their child's gonna be like now.
I mean, does it seem to you though that there's like a non-human kind of energy behind like the main agenda? Like if you just put into one big kind of category, like not even getting into all the particulars, because obviously there's like the pharmaceuticals, there's the oil, the banking,
Right.
the media. I mean, just every category, the earth itself. Like that level of an agenda that they seem to have going on. Do you think that's even like? Do you think that's from a human origin or non-human origin? That's the open-ended question.
I think you said it so well when you talked about what's possible with some of these predatory minds that could have some sort of demonic or any sort of negative channeling they really get into. Like, and considering just like the flow state of the mind, I think some of these psychopaths, sociopaths, more reptilian minds could probably exist in that flow state, right? Just like the predator you see out on the on clips on the history or on the like on TV, like they're reacting to their senses, right? They don't have this human capacity. So I think the topic of realizing they're not human is really valuable in seeing that they process the world in a non-human way and how we see the world as human. And there's that chance that could just be demonic, right? That could really be demonic. It could be from these entities that love to take on a body that will submit. So
yeah, and there are tremendously dark things that can come through the human psyche at times. Yeah, so it does seem to be, at least in some cases, like like how much controlled, like if you want to say like the human soul in there, like if you want to say like the human soul and then like other energies, if you want to see it that way. But yeah, there's definitely like very dark things that can come through even a human. So yeah, I mean, there's be no doubt. I guess I was just more like the level of the agenda that they have is like, it just seems more detailed than any like one human, even a human group that was really into like something, would ever like seem to be doing it to this level.
Yeah, I do take it. I do take it from the perspective that it is essentially just like greater spiritual forces at work. Obviously, Christian. I take it through that like Christian lens of, and also just more from the idea that like these people are kind of willingly letting themselves sort of get possessed by entities that they're not quite aware of, and kind of letting other entities sort of flow through them. So when you interact with some people, the best way to describe them is that they're demonically possessed. I've seen some in the server.
Yep. Oh yeah, dude. And I mean, we've seen like, even in the type of like experiential experiences where people are just using breathing, just breath, but they go very deep on a lot of breathing, and they go, even those people sometimes can go full, like it's like literally like a scene from The Exorcist. And the goal is to release it though. I mean, you don't want to hurt anyone. Obviously, don't hurt yourself or anyone else. But you know, if you need to release a noise or whatever, that's, you know, because that's what helps people heal. But I'm just saying, like, you know, it could be some like 50-year-old woman that's very gentle, kind, oh hello, you know, and then a few hours later, you know, she's doing the breathing and she's going into some exorcist, you know, type energy. I mean, it's amazing what comes through people and what comes out of people. It's, yeah, so we've seen it all. Yeah, some of the most intense stuff. Yeah, so.
Man, you're reminding me so much right now. Like, I've been kind of noticing this exact thing in my disabled neighbor. Like, he will be sitting here watching, like, he wants to watch like silly anime sometimes, so I'll load him up for him. And he just sometimes goes into this weird channel state. Like, it's, I don't know, it's literally exactly like you're explaining. That's trippy. Like, he's making noises, you know what I mean? He's like, I don't know how to explain it. And to me, I think if there are these entities that are looking around, they're definitely looking for people that are, you know, in emotionally low places, people, you know, the weakest of us, really. And what is more weak than something that doesn't have much of its humanity left? You know, as intelligent as they may be, and you know, powerful that they feel, whatever. Do you think that, like, at some point these bloodlines will go public, or do you think that we really have exposed some of them?
I think that, yeah, there's a couple ways of going about it. Is that one, regardless of whether or not they do go public, any level of them going public, or if it does go public, or if it goes public in like niche spheres or whatever, the more and more that something is talked about, the more and more that it's the only reason that they're talking about it is because there's nothing that can be done anymore. Like, I would give the concept in that my framework of people being gender inverted has recently become something to where you do see people actually talking about it, people actually discussing it. And at that point, a conception would be that the only reason they're doing it now is because there's nothing that can be done anymore. So they're very confident, just like, yep, we're just going to put our balls out on the table, literally and figuratively.